This is a severe weather alert from WWL Weather, sponsored by Egan Insurance Agency.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Chief Meteorologist Chris Franklin. Just wanted to bring you the latest on Tropical Storm Rafael, getting a little bit stronger, not unexpected. Winds are now at 70 miles an hour, so it is on the cusp of becoming a hurricane, and again, that was expected as well. One thing to note, though, I was kind of measuring the distance of some of the main thunderstorm activity. It is a very, very small storm. The width of those main thunderstorms is only about 80 or so miles wide, so this is not a very large storm. It is going to remain very small through its path into the Gulf. What you also see are those brighter cloud tops indicating intensifying storms, and you definitely see that they have been rotating around the center of the storm. So it is getting better organized, but that was always expected in a more hospitable environment in the Caribbean. Now, as we go through the evening and into the night, we will likely see this become a hurricane. Hurricane Rafael moving across somewhere along western Cuba. Again, that was anticipated, still maintaining its strength as a Category 1. It could jump up to a Category 2 before or right before landfall in Cuba. And then once into the Gulf, this is when we should start to see conditions for the storm deteriorating because it is a more hostile environment. Now, probably not Wednesday into Thursday. Down in the southern Gulf, wind shear will still be on the lower side. It may still have a little bit of moisture to work with, and it still has some slightly warm water temperatures. Water temperatures there about 81, 82 degrees or so. As it continues, though, through now more westward into the central Gulf. Remember yesterday, it was kind of a split with the models. The GFS going almost due north, maybe toward New Orleans to say around Apalachicola, almost Panama City, almost Apalachicola, and then the Euro taking it almost more due west. Well, what we've seen is that the models, both the GFS and the ensembles, meaning several models that the Hurricane Center uses to produce their track, we have seen them all kind of favoring a little bit more along the line of what the Euro is saying. Maybe not as dramatic of an almost due westerly motion, but they're all starting to favor that kind of western turn. There's going to be a big question, though, as we get into Thursday and Friday, when exactly, well, really more Wednesday into Thursday, of exactly when it starts to make that turn more toward the west, because that would determine just how far off the Louisiana coast it is. But this is a good representation of what the Euro has been saying. Once we get into Friday, it starts to encounter that much drier air. Well, it already started to encounter that through Thursday and into Friday, but also the stronger wind shear and moving into cooler water temperatures. So this is when we should start to see it really start to rapidly weaken Friday into Saturday and then into Sunday. Note, though, what is interesting, here we go Saturday noon, 60 miles an hour, 45 mile an hour wind, so just barely hanging on to a strength of a tropical storm. Sunday at noon. In about 24 hours, it is not going to go very far north at all. And in fact, some models, including the Euro, kind of have it making that turn toward the west and eventually making a little bit of a turn toward the north. It may just kind of sit, maybe not completely stall out, but it may just sit because what's going to eventually make it turn toward the north is going to be a deepening upper trough. That is what will eventually kind of pick it up toward the north. Some models, though, kind of leave it off and it just fizzles out in the Gulf of Mexico. But keep in mind, if this was August or September, I'd be concerned about a track like this. Considering it is early November, I am not. In fact, I really don't even have major implications to our forecast as we head into Sunday and Monday. And that's looking to be more likely when we would see any impacts, if at all, Sunday and Monday. As things stand right now, again, that could change. Let's take a look at the model comparisons with the Hurricane Center's plot and the Euro and the GFS. So as we go through the next 24 to 48 hours, models are in pretty good agreement, moving into the Gulf sometime late on Wednesday. Then the models do have a bit more agreement, maybe a little bit of a spread, but not nearly as much of a spread as there was yesterday with that turn toward the west. Then there is kind of a question of exactly when it starts getting drawn up to the north. Notice Sunday at 7 o'clock, Hurricane Center has it kind of just off the Louisiana coast. Now, that's again the center point. It could be anywhere within that margin of error, which really does take into account what the GFS is saying, maybe already inland, and what the Euro is saying, maybe still kind of sitting offshore. But at this point in the forecast, it is not an organized tropical system any longer. It is being ripped apart with the dry air intrusion, this cooler water temperature, and more importantly, that that wind shear. So the structure of the storm at this point is not going to be that of a well-organized tropical system. It will have been ripped apart at that point. So to kind of give you a better idea of what the storm may look like, this is what the Euro is thinking. Again, very organized, rain wrapped around the core, and a very strong storm, but very small storm. As it moves into the Gulf, still fairly healthy as we head toward Thursday and Friday. Then this is where it starts to encounter the more hostile conditions. Rainfall not really as well defined. You don't see those tight isobars, meaning the wind field is starting to weaken and kind of fall apart as well. And as it continues to encounter that dry air, notice rain is well removed away from what is the center and already kind of getting pushed away toward the northeast of the storm because of that dry air and strong wind shear. So at that point, Sunday into Monday, that may be our best opportunity for some rain. And even that is not a deluge of an all-day rain event. In fact, I've kind of said about a 40%, maybe 50% chance for Monday, the way things stand right now. Of course, that could change, but I don't believe our impacts are going to be detrimental. Certainly some stronger winds and possibly even some rainfall, but it really will depend upon where exactly it starts moving northward and how far removed a lot of that rainfall is. Here's what we're dealing with right now. You can already see kind of the moisture plume out ahead of the storm. This is what I was talking about yesterday that may kind of get fed farther north into Georgia and South Carolina, providing for maybe some flooding rainfall there around this upper high. This upper high and the eventual upper trough is the future in its steering. Right now, very dry air. So we'll look at the dry air forecast first. Again, there's that moisture plume up toward Carolinas and Georgia. As we go throughout the weekend, though, and into the start of next week, it is embedded within some very dry air. That's immediately starting to push all of that rainfall away from the center. Wind shear is also helping to rip the storm apart as we head later into the week, more so into the weekend as the storm tries to get closer to the coast. So even with that forecast track, while it does look ominous, keep in mind, it is weakening over the Gulf waters, and long before it even reaches land, it will be ripped apart. So it's looking less and less likely, and really never did look very likely, but less and less likely that this would still be a named storm. It's certainly a possibility, and even if it was still a named storm, by the time it crosses the coastline, it is going to be a far, far weaker storm. But it's possible this storm kind of gets ripped apart, and it's kind of more the remnants long before it ever reaches land. Again, with a path like this in August or September, I'm concerned. Not concerned at all, because in fact, we could use the rainfall from this, and if we do get it, it probably wouldn't be until late Sunday and on into Monday, the way things stand right now. We'll be tracking Rafael over the next couple of days, and keep in mind, even as we head into the weekend, it may not be moving a whole lot as we head from Saturday to Sunday, and maybe still talking about it into the Monday and possibly even Tuesday. Again, we are not talking about a threatening hurricane or possibly even a strong tropical storm moving toward Louisiana. It'll be a weakening system by the time it impacts us, if at all. We'll have a complete update of the forecast coming up on WW Louisiana News at 5. We will have a new new coordinates as of 6 o'clock, and then we won't get a new track until 9 o'clock, so going into our 10 o'clock newscast, and I'm not expecting any dramatic changes from that. For now, I'm Chief Meteorologist Chris Franklin.
This has been a severe weather alert from WWL Weather.